So one of the jobs that I take very seriously on my channel is talking about entertainment in the most direct fashion and giving you my actual opinion on something and not something that's been weathered through a bunch of other people or opinions. I don't respect people who look at talking points and talk about things in a way that will make them more relatable, because I think authenticity is where all that comes from. And if you're looking for that kind of review on episode 3, well, that's what you're going to get, because I'm going to not only speak off the top of my head, I'm going to kind of agree that episode 3 was the epitome of the gayest Star Wars ever. That's right. The thumbnail may be a little provocative, of course, because hyperbole drives viewership. But overall, this was an episode that had so many different problems despite having only one narrative subject to deal with. And that, of course, is the twins and the conflict with the Jedi, or the Coven anyway. But before we jump into all of that, I want to talk about the broader issue when it comes to Star Wars. And with that all being said, I first have to say this. Beachpunk.us is the website that I have, where you can pick up all your rooster gear, water bottles, your summer wear. Believe it or not, we have swimsuits and things now, amazing t-shirts and more. Beachpunk.us has some, novelty items and things that are also seasonal, and a regular supply of new and interesting things are being created all the time. Fairly soon, we'll have my own website, CultureCasino website out there, and that will have a few more personalized things that you will only find there. So if you want to support the site, not only should you be a subscriber down below, double check and make sure that that'll, or over here, I guess, now that they changed the layout, that you're still subscribed. If it's red, turn it gray and be a subscriber of the channel. And if you're a member, thank you, because you are making sure the lights stay on here in the studio. But let's jump on this story. The Acolyte is performed worse than Ashoka. This is a story coming out on June 10th, written by John F. Trent over there at one of the great sites that I participate in, That Park Place. And the global minutes viewed is less than Ahsoka's U.S. premiere viewership. Of course, all this data comes from the great analyst and friend of mine, Valiant Renegade, who was correct, except that he left off an important part, which he later corrected via a tweet, saying that essentially House of the Dragon premiere was substantially better than Ahsoka and or the Acolyte. In fact, I think his realization was that House of the Dragon, or Acolyte compared to House of the Dragon, was just basically 1/10 of House of the Dragon's performance. So you can certainly go and check out that article and this one that says the Access Media is blaming fans for ruining Star Wars. Now, I'm not sure how fans, other than maybe fan fiction, could have ruined Star Wars, unless that's the people that you hired to write the show. Because the fans didn't write the show, folks. The people at Lucasfilm did, and they're pushing a whole lot of different agendas. And, of course, you can read for yourself right there on the screen. And, look, those things are quite laid bare in Episode 3, just as you expected they would be. And, again, why the thumbnail for this video is what it is. Because it was, well, there were a lot of shears alluded to here. In fact, it's a whole colony of ladies in a coven of witches, and somehow ended up with, well, kids. And you can figure all that out later, which actually destroys canon, which, believe it or not, they actually admit to. The inverse stuff that you're seeing out there is incredible. Midnight's Edge recently did a video covering all of this, but all these weird things, like the Acolyte just introduced a shocking oppressive Star Wars rule, and the Acolyte's witches just rewrote the rules of the Force, and of course they did. They changed what we know about Anakin Skywalker's birth, talking about the midichlorians and things like that. And today, Script Doctor actually said that this is taking one of George's worst ideas and having a terrible writer decide to run with it. And this is what we ended up with. And there's no mystery here whether or not Livy Scott over at Inverse believes any of the trollop that she writes or garbage that she writes. You have to understand that this is Star Wars in name only at this point. And how do I know that? Because one of the biggest financial papers out there decided to not employ a shill to write their review. And my thoughts on this coming up in a moment, but Forbes' thoughts, or at least Eric Kane's thoughts, who's a senior contributor over there, says one of the most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made. And I concur. It's impossible to argue with this. It came out today, the day that I'm recording this, the day that hopefully you're watching it on Wednesday, the 12th. Excuse me. It came out yesterday. Wow. Okay. Sorry for that. Updated on the 12th, I should say. I read the wrong byline there. But yeah, it is one of the worst things ever written. And saying specifically that the third episode of Disney's The Acolyte is an embarrassment to the entire franchise. I couldn't agree more. Of course, there were some episodes of Book of Boba Fett and definitely many, if not all of the episodes of Ashoka that were embarrassing to Star Wars. But yeah, outside of Andor, which he says right here, and the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, he's agreeing. The same could be said for so much of Star Wars these days. And I agree. As much as I didn't really enjoy Andor, everything else is just pumped full of, chock full of, messaging instead of story. So there's one exchange between 2 characters that I think a lot of people caught if they watched the episode. And hopefully you haven't. Hopefully you're getting your information here and avoiding this trash. May says the Jedi are bad, and Osha says the Jedi are good. Well, in analyzing that, I would say, well, there you go. There you go. The good guys are the Jedi. May doesn't think so. May identifies with the bad guys, just like all of the writers and people who are putting Star Wars together these days. They're the bad guys. They're very anti-human. They don't really seem interested in telling good stories, just messaging that will make you rethink everything else you're doing in your life. Later, the same 2 characters, twin protagonists, antagonists of the story, as children say to one another, "What have you done?" And the other says, "What have you done? What have you done?" Well, apparently murdered everybody in a fire, because that's something that actually happens here. Somehow stone is combustible, and so is metal from something in a lamp and some paper, parchment. That was basically a guide to how to be a good witch, I would imagine. I don't know for sure, but the guidebook seems to have been burned and turned into the element of destruction for everyone here, except for, well, a Jedi in the form of Soul and the 2 girls themselves eventually. Although you don't know that. You actually think May is peace out. And if she had been, this probably would have been a better show. But we'll continue on here. So he asked the same question to Disney. What have you done? It's a good question. The entire episode is a bad joke, and of course the narrative is driven by one storyline, which they can't even keep straight. If you're a member of the audience or of the critics community, if you were a little bit confused, I think that was part of the point here, because it's hard to talk about things in anything that's a consistent way if they're not consistent themselves. And continuity doesn't seem to be a big deal here. If somebody has been in a forced sleep for a couple of decades, but less time than that has passed when they're awakened, you have all kinds of problems here. And why or why not anybody did a bad thing is, well, an interesting conversation indeed. But it appears they were conceived using the Force. That would be these twins. Or something. Force-using witches are also apparently frowned upon in this galaxy. They call the Force the thread. Okay. I'm getting dark side vibes here, and he's not the only one. They're really trying to make the Jedi out to be the bad guys because, again, the people at Lucasfilm are writing from their perspective. They're Sith. They're the bad guys. They've been making bad things for bad reasons for quite some time, ever since Kathleen Kennedy somehow weaseled her way in the door and core leadership of Lucasfilm. And if you're interested in all of the many failures that she has been able to produce, take no further looks than the now obliterated Willow and or the most recent Indiana Jones film, which was staggeringly a failure financially. it may have basically ruined Lucasfilm's reputation forever. And this reboot of Star Wars is not helping at all. So, Osha. Let me tell you a little bit about this. That's a funny name to call a girl. But Osha and May fight with one another constantly and are very, very irritating throughout the episode. Well, yeah. I mean, you have to have conflict between these twins that are brought up amongst a coven of women. And they act out and act badly and seem to have revealed themselves to the Jedi by exploring the planet, or at least one of them did. And Osha wants to leave her people, and May wants to stay. So when the Jedi show up and ask to test the girls for the Force powers, they agree to fake not having any. But the Jedi Master Soul convinces Osha not to lie, and she says she wants to be a Jedi with them, against her mother's wishes. Well, and primarily her sister's wishes. And she elects to move along. So May's upset and threatens to kill her sister, locking her in their chambers and burning the entire witch village to the ground, which apparently kills everybody, so well done. It seems clear that there's more to the story, that somehow the four Jedi, Indara, King Tommen, and Wookiee Jedi and Soul are somehow complicit. I don't know how they get any of that, but that's the breakdown. Oh, and by the way, spoilers, if anybody cares. This might possibly be one of the worst episodes of television I've ever been forced to watch. 44 minutes in all, and just trash from beginning to end. The Force is indeed female, and that's why it seems to have been completely derailed. Because, well, there's nothing logical about any of this. And don't take that as a personal offense or even, a little misogynist. But, everything's driven by emotion here. Watch it again. Everything is emotion. Nothing's logical. Whenever there's an attempt to employ logic, there's backlash. What does that sound like to you? Of course, here's some scattered thoughts from Mr. Kane. Says, IGN says this episode offers up some tantalizing new layers of how we both perceive the Jedi and the Force. And I would like to know if we use different versions of the word tantalizing. I think they do. I'm confused about the entire motivation of May. And so am I. Who wants revenge on the Jedi, but is actually the one responsible for killing everybody? If that is anyone that is actually dead, after all, both twins thought the other was dead, it seems likely none of the witches died at all, which I seem to think I said earlier today in a panel show I was in and got some backlash saying, no, they were crispy critters. And I don't know. But I do know this. It seems to be a witches problem to have burned everybody to a crisp. The Jedi in Episode 2 killed himself over this, it seems. It's not more... if there's not more to the story, this will make absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I'm going to say this was conceived by Leslie Headland and many others in the story group who are comprised of, well, maybe people who are elevated beyond a position that they can carry out with any form of quality, consistency, or care. And I think that basically describes Lucasfilm over the last almost decade now. The witch chant, this seems fun, was one of the lamest chants in the history of all chants. I wouldn't be that harsh. I've heard some worse ones, but I wanted to giggle maniacally listening to it. I also wanted to cry. I laughed. I was laughing, giggle, heck. I'm like, this is funny as heck. And if you haven't seen Chris Gore's meme on X about this, you should go check that out because I think he gets to the crux of it. And I can't do it here on the many platforms that I am on video-wise because, well, one or two of them might not appreciate the hand gestures that go along with what Chris Gore conveys very well in his meme. But what is this all leading to? Well, not any place good. Look, they end this episode the same way the entire episode went. The girls fight. The fire spreads throughout what appears to be a stone cave. It is. And metal, by the way. I guess low temperature stone, low temperature metal. I don't know. And suddenly they're passing all these bodies. Now, if you look at this picture, they don't look like they've burned to death at all. They do look like they've been through it, but I don't know about any of that. There was no commotion or screaming or battle. It's more confusing than intriguing. Also, what's up with the tree? Good question. Somebody captured the chant footage that was put in the TV show, and you really should find this footage out there. This Jacob person is not grasping reality well, and saying, it looks amazing. No, it really didn't. I do have a theory, however. Imposters have taken over Star Wars and a lot of other popular genre properties, from The Witcher to True Detective. I agree with that. And they are making the changes to make it their own, which is, not even slowly destroying it. And as he finds the quote that I would have grabbed had I done this without his aid, according to George R.R. Martin, said, everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own. It does not seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, Ian Fleming, Roald Dahl, Ursula K. Le Guin, and or J.R.R. Tolkien, Mark Twain, Raymond Chandler, Jane Austen, or, anyone. No matter how major a writer it is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take up the story and improve on it. The book is the book. The film is the film, they will tell you, as if they were saying something profound. Then they make the story their own. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. A quote I actually picked up about 3 weeks ago when this kind of dropped. And as he says there, amen, brother. So let's jump to my thoughts here, and not just the thoughts of those who are on Rotten Tomatoes, where this thing scored a grand total of 23% in average audience score, a number that is consistently trending downward, and I think is being artificially elevated by Rotten Tomatoes because, hey, they love to help Disney out. But when you look at the 84% from the critics, well, you click on the tomatometer, and it's actually 72 from top critics. And 23% all audience. Again, artificially high. You can go through and see the thought out reviews on the negative side of the equation and the obvious bot reactions on the it's good side of things. But that number will continue to drop. And as Valiant Renegade predicted, I think I'll jump on that and say he's probably right. This will drop and dip below 20%. There's no stopping it now. I think the threshold of bots to humans is going to knock this thing down about as far as it can possibly go. I have a feeling that just looking at episode 3 alone, going to be bad. But back to my thoughts specifically, and I will do that right here. There wasn't anything good here. Our friend Grace Randolph shot off her load, saying the typical things that shills do when they're reading from the old playbook, that viewers, fans are review bombing this and attacking the people that are responsible for making it, which is absolutely, and I'm going to use this word properly, asinine. Her take here, and I'm going to show it to you because I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and I feel bad for her that she's so indoctrinated into this, but she says, I will say that I think it's going to be very hard for Disney to cast upcoming Star Wars projects because this level of hate just isn't worth it, even for up-and-coming actors. And I will say, people are going to work for Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney anytime they possibly can because it's a paycheck. I don't know that anybody's going to consider the future. She doesn't provide any proof for the likes of poor Lee Jung-jae coming off of Squid Game and doing a great job on The Acolyte. Well, he may be, but it's not his performance that is suffering. It's the writing that is. And of course, Not to let something silly go past, I, of course, responded, as I usually do. I say specifically, no one is blaming the actors. Where are you seeing this? Notice how she doesn't cite anything. Do you have examples of hordes of people attacking him? No, you don't. The show is objectively bad. The writing is terrible. Every episode so far fails the logic test, which is true, especially now. It convolutes the 2 previous episodes with what we were shown as exposition in video form. None of it makes sense. It fails at narrative, well, of course, even though it only had one element in episode 3. And episode 3 is a complete failure, despite only having one story element to follow. It now convolutes the timeline of events even further, which I expounded upon a moment ago, but it makes this, the poison drinking Jedi make 0 sense. There's so much here that's broken. It won't be hard to cast the future actors either. You know what you sign up for with anything Disney now. Yeah, the message. Not a good story, not probably a particularly good role. You're doing it because it's a paycheck. People just need to work now in Hollywood because it's destroyed itself. Fewer shows, fewer films, fewer opportunities. And it's across the board. Ask my friends that work in the IATSE and the crafts, and they'll tell you there's fewer jobs out there, and there will be, because a lot of pretenders walked into Hollywood and decided that they were going to be activists first and storytellers later, and they didn't actually have any storytelling ability. The studios brought them in and hired them. You don't have to look farther than Warner Brothers and the BLM person that they hired. You don't have to look past Hedlund, who, was the former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein. She's the one responsible for this show and is only capable of writing one kind of production. And it's all driven off of, her life experiences. In fact, she's so tied up in this. She's so narcissistic. She hired her wife as one of the actresses, despite the, lack of qualifications. This thing is a hot mess. It's not going to get any better. And if you were thinking it would, it won't. Episode 3. The twins are at odds with each other about what they want to be in the future. And the Jedi are at odds with the witches because they don't believe the witches should be training the children in the use of the Force because, they're probably the foundation of the Sith in some form or fashion, or just happen to align with the very dark-sided properties. Dark side versus light side, but trying to make the light side look like the villains. It's not a very good story, and I have a feeling we're going to see a hot mess, for lack of a better way of describing it. I don't know that I'm going to watch beyond episode 3. That's up to you. If we get this video magically over 10,000 views, then maybe I'll do it. But there's no reason to watch this show. And just watch creators talk about it, watch the memes, and watch the further destruction of Lucasfilm and Dismal Disney Star Wars. But hey, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Did you find the episode entertaining? Because I know there are people out there who are saying, oh no, it was good. It's better than this. Well, let me know. If you did, let me know why. What was the compelling story element that drove you to enjoy it? And what about the insinuation of how the twins were created did you think was acceptable or passable or not canon rewriting? Because let me tell you, according to all the inverse articles, they're rewriting canon with this show on purpose, retroactively destroying anything that followed. Well done. And also, if you didn't like it, tell me why. I want to know that too. And let me know if you want me to keep doing this to myself. It's a business of sadists and masochists. Which one are you? Especially this show. Oh, boy. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.